What's going on? And welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur podcast. Tomas Keenan here. Today we're in the office in the podcast studio recording some content. My man Ryan Speltz here with me. And Ryan and I connected, dude, what was it? A week ago? 2 weeks ago?
For the first time? Very long ago.
Yeah. I mean, like a handful of days ago. And I was a guest on your podcast, which was awesome. Had a great time there. And through our conversation, like we just connected, in my opinion, quicker and on a deeper level than I do with most that I either am a guest on someone's podcast or even just, have on my show. And we kind of turned around real quick and got you on this because I wanted to keep that momentum moving forward. And also kind of, this is one of the things you do as a podcast host, right? Is you reciprocate. So cool. You had me on your show. Awesome. It was a great experience to me. Let me do the same for you. So those who are listening, like, take some hints here, take some notes on how others are doing it. Like this is one way to help your fellow man, person, whatever you want to call them these days with the she, him, her crap. So I'm grateful to have you here with us, sir. You're coming to us today from sunny Puerto Rico, which I think is awesome. I want to hear a little bit about how you guys ended up in Puerto Rico, and I have a good understanding why. But those who are listening may not understand the reasons and the purposes of that. But dude, welcome. Let's hear it, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And, loved having you on my show. And right at the end there, I was just like, I got to be on yours. And so I may have forced your hand there in that piece too. And just like, hey, dude, I got to, not that I out-muscled you, obviously, but yeah, man, it was, good time on the show. And I'm excited to jump in here. But yeah, I mean, really the story wise goes, we just kind of designed the life we wanted to live. We've really just kind of approached life as one big entrepreneurship, if we want to frame it in words of the show. It's really just we came down during COVID in Puerto Rico, came down to Puerto Rico during COVID, and because it was the only place we could go. And we had a planned trip to go overseas, and our flight was going through China, and so they obviously shut that down. And then we had rescheduled Bermuda and Peru for like 1 week in each place. And then that got shut down because it was outside the country. So then they kind of locked us into the country, and Puerto Rico is the territory. So we didn't need a passport, didn't need to go through all that stuff, and got down here and really enjoyed it. Even at that time where everything was kind of like up in the air and there wasn't a whole lot open even here. We just kind of explored what Puerto Rico had to offer, which is something for everybody. And so, me being in the mortgage side of the real estate industry, I'm consistently looking at pricing and stuff like that, and just hopped on Zillow. And ironically, Zillow is not used that much down here. Like the majority of the homes aren't even listed on Zillow. So I'm looking, as I look back on when we found our house, it was purely divine intervention of like, this is what you need or what you should have. And we found a steal of a house, and really like, we still feel that we kind of stole it a little bit. Like they were a little bit panicked and they were house flippers, and they had it for a while, and it was under contract with somebody else. And they told us they backed out due to the COVID restrictions and being unsure of what was going to happen there. And so this was, October of 2020. So kind of like in the heavy part of like 6 months in. And so, yeah, I mean, we ended up making an offer 2 days after we went back home. We didn't even get to tour the home when we were down here. We did it virtually from home, and just made the offer, and they countered, and we're like, yep, we can do that. So that's kind of how Puerto Rico happened. It was just like all of those things kind of falling into place.
Yeah, I don't know if we covered this on my appearance on your show, but like we were doing the same thing at the same time, just in different areas of the world, right? I was selling a house in New York and started around June of 2020. We sold it within 48 hours to a cash buyer for $35,000 over asking price because it was crazy up there at the time. Started looking for homes, spent a week in Dallas on pavement on the ground, working with our realtor. And didn't find anything. And she says to us, hey, I know what you guys are looking for. Like she was on the ball. Like she really was. She goes, I know what you guys are looking for. She goes, I'm going to book a couple of viewings. I'm going to go in for you. And if I think it's the right one, I'm going to send you a video. And if you like it, tell me immediately. We're going to put an offer in. I was like, oh, okay. I guess this is how it's going these days. So we did so. And long story short, we find one, we put the offer in, and it was September 25th of 2020, almost October, is when we officially moved into my house here in North Dallas. And same deal though. I mean, like I didn't see the house until I went down. I flew down. without telling family, because, you know, they would have been in a freaking uproar, which is kind of mind boggling if you think about it. Flew down here incognito and spent the day on site with the inspectors, just, you know, checking the whole house out, whatnot, and everything got the green light. And it was like, oh shit, I guess we're moving to Dallas.
Yeah.
So you and I are literally doing the same thing, just different periods, different areas of the country. Pretty wild.
Yeah, and that's you know, especially during that time frame with, you know, going in the mortgage direction, that was kind of a super busy time for us, right? Like we were swamped, like everybody's refinancing, the rates are ridiculous, and you know, it was just at that point it was just kind of like, well, we could buy it, and then when we're not here, we'll just list it, you know, on the short form platforms, the Airbnb, Vrbo, whatever, and we'll just see how it goes. And, you know, at the price that we got it for, it wasn't going to crush us, even if the mortgage business shut off, which obviously it eventually did. But at this point now, you know, it went nuts because over that summer, that was when the stimulus checks started coming out, and there was so many people traveling that didn't normally travel, right? Like, and at that point, it was like, well, we don't need a passport to go here, so let's go here. Our first year was insane on the rental, so like we did something that you probably, you know, would be ill-advised, buy in another country that you can't literally drive, you can't even drive to get there. So if airlines shut down to that country, you're not getting there.
You're done.
You know, unless you take a boat. And then you know, we just ended up getting into a great situation with it, and we ended up basically making back over that first summer every penny that we had invested up front. And so like December came around and we're like just kind of looking around like, do you want to buy another one? Like this one went so well that it was just like, do you want to buy another one, you know? And so it's kind of fun to look back on. We've just flipped that one over to the second one we bought to be a long-term rental instead of short-term, because it's, you know, we got a baby on the way. We're just like, let's get as much off the plate as possible at this point that's going to, you know, interrupt day-to-day stuff. And, you know, it's just interesting to think about like how many of the people in the industry went out and bought like cool cars and shit that they just don't need, right? Like all the stuff that like they literally tell you not to do when you make good money, because the rainy day is going to come. And we invested into two things that are, you know, making us enough money to pay themselves off. So we literally don't even notice that the bills are coming out for that piece. And we've been able to basically live uninterrupted lifestyle for the past 2.5 years, even when my wife, you know, got hurt and wasn't working, because we invested in the right things over that time. And so, you know, I really look back and like, I wasn't knowledgeable enough on the whole thing to like project myself out 3 years and be like, yep, this is where we're going to be. You know, you know, some would say I got lucky, and others would say like myself, like something told me to do what we did, right? Like we were supposed to be in those spots. So, you know, it's the same thing, you know, like we talked about with you in Dallas, like you just felt called to, or in Texas, called to be there. And you're just like, this is where I got to be. And, you know, you look back and you go, that's what happened. Somebody told me I needed to be here and I listened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that little bit of intuition, or that little scratch, or a little itch you get that we sometimes ignore comes in. And man, I've had a couple of times in my life where I've ignored it and shit's gone sideways real fast, you know, and it's one of those things where you just have to pay attention to it. And I think, you know, if you want to go back in human history and whatnot, and years and years and years ago, generations ago, it was listened to much more greatly than it is today. And I also think there's a resurgence of it kind of coming back, and people paying attention and saying, okay, that's not so woo-woo. We need to listen to that sixth sense a little bit.
But I think it was, so that's what you did years past. You didn't have all the distractions out there of other people filling your head with shit. Like now it's like, let me just sit here and scroll in my free time instead of like just sit outside on a stump and think. Like that just, you don't do that anymore, you know? And so that's something that, you know, in the day-to-day piece, especially, you know, with business as busy as it can get, you know, we were talking about it just right before this, like it's been a crazy day, and you just take that 5 minutes and sit and like reset yourself and then go into the next thing. And so really over I started coaching with a new coach in January. And it's actually interesting because I'm coaching with somebody that's on the real estate side. So they're not a mortgage lender. They're not a traditional person that you would hire as a mortgage person to coach you. But obviously the business is very similar and that kind of stuff. But, you know, getting a little bit different perspective on what I'm doing. And the first thing we did was like schedule everything out. So I'm thinking, okay, let me just like minute by minute, right? Like, let me schedule this as much as possible. And now I'm like 2 months into it and I'm going, okay, how the hell do I schedule more space in here? Like, I don't want to have to transition from one thing to the next. And that gives me that time then, that just that little break in between, that gives me that time then to really focus on that intuition, actually listen to it, because it's always there. It's just, you got to listen to it when it comes.
Yeah. So one of the things, so it's, man, so many similarities here. I started working with a new coach in either November or December, or a month or two before you did, right? And one of the things that was explained to me, and I was very guilty of this, So listen, I'm a coach as well. I do this all the time, just like you do. And it's like, okay, I would be guilty of, okay, here's a Calendly link, and the Calendly link gets stacked up because someone has access to it. They book, and I have it set up so there's like a 30-minute buffer in between each call, and then someone reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I need a couple of minutes of your time tomorrow. Do you have time at 11:30?" You look at the calendar like, "Fuck, well, there's a gap there because I have a buffer built into my automated booking system. However, I'm going to circumvent that because it's fine. Just this one time, I'll let you come in and sneak." And now we've got a packed day, so much where you can't even get up and go to the bathroom or grab a fresh cup of water or go eat a snack. Those days are crazy. And I've pretty much said to myself, like, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. And one of the things that the coach I was working with told me is like, I want you to set a reminder, or a timer, a buzzer, something on your devices that gets you up and moving out of your chair every 50 to 60 minutes. And I'm not saying to go outside and go for a mile run. I'm saying get up and walk around your office, go do 10 push-ups, go do some air squats, go stretch for a couple minutes. And that has made a tremendous difference in how I show up for my clients on the next call that comes after. So one of the things that I found was that my energy was just declining longer and longer and longer. We went into the day where I'd show up to a call, my eyes are half closed. I'm like on the 6th cup of coffee, and I'm like, holy shit, this day is just crazy. But now you put these little energy bursts or buffers in place, and I can show up and give my clients the best version of me, which is what they deserve, especially at the price points that people are paying to work with me.
Yeah, that's a huge difference in that scheduling piece of that buffer. And, that you put that in place. I always have to harken back to my old self when I made that schedule, right? Like I'm a different person now than I was when I created my scheduling apps. And even that guy knew that I needed a break in between. So why am I trying to say like, I'm better now, I don't need a break, and you just have to, like, if you make some different things kind of your master in a different way, like you're not worshiping them or anything like that. But if you create a calendar, like, just stick to what you did. Like, you did it for a reason. And whether you're losing that reason or not, like, just remember, like, I did it for a reason. I must have done it for something, and just trust that piece. And I think that's probably a difficulty of a lot of entrepreneurs. And, speaking from the real estate side, obviously, because that's what I'm in every day, I see it all the time, like these Facebook groups where people are like, what's your best lead source, or where are you getting your next client? And those people don't trust their ability to get the next client or to help the next person. They're not trusting themselves as a skilled professional. And I even made a post today about, it was inspired by another post that I saw, but the post was about, like, if you're thinking that reaching out to your sphere of influence or your, family members and stuff sounds too salesy, you're probably right. Like, that means you're not doing it the right way. That means you're not actually reaching out to help them. You're reaching out to sell them. Mm-hmm. And that's lack of trust on their part, right? Because they don't know how to communicate without going, I'm a real estate agent, I do this, like, they don't know how to provide value without it just being purely about them being a realtor and being able to find your best, like, all that crap. And I think that's, obviously we've got this big NAR settlement that just came in, and so many people are freaking out about it. And that's exactly why, because they've never had to actually establish the value that they provide. Mm-hmm. And so, we talk about starting with why you do things. They're starting with the reason that you do things. And my partner in Reconnect, which is the coaching platform we're developing for real estate, my partner in that, we're starting to discuss, like, do we start with why or do we start with worth? Because you can't really tell someone why you do something unless you know your worth behind it. Like, you've got to be able to communicate the worth to be able to tell them, well, this is why we do things, because this is the value of that. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of intertwined, but we're playing around with, like, do we start with worth first or do we start with the why first? And they're kind of interchangeable in certain ways, but
yeah, they can be. I find that Like I work with a lot of clients in figuring out the three, and I call it the vision, right? You've got your purpose, which is your why. You've got your mission, right, which is what you do, who you do it for, and by when. And then you've got the third ring would be your core values. And if you looked at them, if you stack them up, it would be core values at the base, it would be your mission, and then it would be your why. Um, and I kind of coach the clients to figure out the core values first, because believe it or not, even as difficult as defining core values is, that's the easiest part of those three. Then you have your mission, right? Who you do, what you do it for, and by when. And a lot of times I find that people have trouble, and myself included here on occasion, the why is the most difficult part to figure out. And sometimes you have to go in there and figure out the values, figure out the mission, and go and do the work for a little while. And then all of a sudden, oh shit, now I understand why we're doing this.
Yeah, that's even the client piece on the backside. They have to, sometimes you have to do things and show them, and just like, this is what we're doing. And then they see the why on the other side as well. So that makes complete sense with that. It's just like, just start action. And then sometimes that comes after the fact. There was a video that I was watching where it's talking about how like there's 4 different levels, and I can't specifically remember all 4 of them, but I know that like he was like, if you don't have your physical part in line, and it doesn't mean you have to be like perfectly sculpted and all of that crap, it's just the discipline that you develop of going to the gym and creating that physical piece. But the physical piece can also be, transformed then into mindset, right? Like, so you do the discipline, and then the mindset kind of comes behind it. I think we talked about this actually a little bit on ours. It's like, you talked about 75 hard kind of being that launch point for you. And there's so much physical involved in that. And it's just that daily discipline piece that turns into, then your mindset gets better. And then when your mindset gets better, then you kind of jump into almost like a mentality of like, oh, I want to find out what the spiritual aspect is now. And then the spiritual aspect kind of turns in, well, now how do I communicate all of this to make it make sense for people so that they can come on their journey with me? And I think, just speaking with you for however long we've spoken to together now, like I'm noticing like watching those levels just like through your story, just like show up. And like, so now I'm like thinking back to the video, I'm like, that was exactly what happens with the majority of people, is they develop those things over time, and they're able to then get that communication piece. And then that's why communication is the most important to so many people, because nobody knows how to do it. They haven't gotten there. They haven't developed that.
Yeah. It's also one of the most uncomfortable pieces too on occasion. And I think people avoid it because it scares them, because they have to have the tough conversation. And like, I know I did that for years, and I'm still not perfect with communication. It is one of my core values that I try to live up to every day, both professionally and personally. But there are occasions where you drop the ball, right? I think it's important too that people just start. Like, if you want to do better, just start. And it doesn't have to start with a physical. It doesn't have to start with a mindset. It doesn't have to start with whatever it may be. Find something that is easiest for you to put some time, effort, energy into, like something that you align with out of the gate, whether it's reading, whether it's journaling, whether it's I don't know, waking up and doing breath work or meditation, if that's your thing. If it's waking up and going to the gym, if it's waking up and going for a walk, if it's waking up and going to spend 20 minutes outside laying on the concrete with your dog, like, I don't care what it is. Do something and get structured and put it into a routine. And that's going to then lead you to the next piece of the puzzle. And I think everyone's journey and how they kind of put these pieces of the puzzle together is different. For me, I wanted to get better in business because I saw a massive opportunity in my service-based company. So I said, okay, cool. I clearly don't know how to do this. I'm a really good installer, but let me someone who knows business better than I do. So I went and I started hiring coaches, and the coaches said, okay, well, the first guy I hired, he's like, if you're going to work with me, you're going to read. I was like, oh, fuck. I've been spending thousands of dollars a month with this guy, and he's telling me I'm going to read. And I came out of the box and gave this guy every excuse possible. And a lot of it was valid, to be quite honest with you, even looking back at it now. I was a service-based business owner who spent a lot of time in the field doing the work myself, like on my tools. And I said to him, I was like, man, I don't have time to read. I was like, I'm physically in the car between 3 and 6 hours a day on average. He's like, well, there's this thing called audiobooks. I was like, God damn it. So like, that was it. But the audiobooks is what started to open up my mind to this whole other world outside. Like, oh, wow, there's a different way of thinking. And I've just been in my own little bubble in Long Island, New York, blue collar, middle-class Tom working with his hands for 20 plus years. And now I'm hearing this insight from others who have been in my shoes or similar situations, and hearing some of the success stories of what they've put together and also some of the struggles that they've had along the way. And, you know, once again, it was like, oh, well, if that person can do it, why can't I? And it just inspired me to keep going further.
Yeah, one of those things there that you mentioned was just like the talking about like the middle class Tom going to work every day. Just thinking about that makes me think like, if we can recognize that there's an opportunity not to have to live the same day every day, that can be the starting point. Mm-hmm. So if you take one thing from any one of those people that's living this lavish lifestyle that you just have no idea how you'd ever get there, the one thing to take and just dwindle it down as far as you can, I don't have to live the same life every single day or the same day every single day of my entire life. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have to do that. And just seeing that opportunity then goes, well, maybe reading is the way. And if reading's the way, I don't care. Read fiction. Like, just do something that expands your mind, because even in a fiction case, you're getting different sentence structure. Mm-hmm. You're reading words that you've probably never read before. Like, everything changes in a book. And whether it's an audible or a hard book, it doesn't matter. You're learning something from that and picking up something from it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree. And it's, you know, those pieces of the puzzle there were the stepping stones that then led me into the physicality piece, because quick story here. It was 2017-ish Christmas so it was really 2016, maybe it was 2017. So Christmas season, December, January. My business partner and myself go into Manhattan, and we meet a client who's responsible for giving us about $400,000 worth of service work a year, which you got to understand, like, that's a lot of work when each of the services this guy sends us is like between 55 and 75 bucks. Like, it's a lot of fucking work. Yeah. So we go and we meet this guy, great dude. If he's ever listening to this, his name's Keith Spiro, older gentleman at this point. He's a professor in a college in the East Coast at this point as well. Like, just super smart dude. And not my finest moment as a human being or a business owner. My ex-business partner and myself got into a verbal altercation in front of a client at dinner. And it didn't go so well. And I said, like, cool. We got done with dinner. We wrapped it up. And my partner dropped me off at Penn Station. And he had driven into the city that night. I took the train because I live further out in the island. So he dropped me off at Penn Station. And I said to myself, not to him, we had some more choice words before I got out of the car. And just to also paint the picture here as well, I am in the worst physical shape of my life at this point. I'm a big dude. Like, even I always have been. I'm 6'4". I'm like 270 now, in decent shape. And at that time, I was 6'4" and like 315 and not a stitch of muscle on my body, kind of deal, like just fat and sloppy. So I said to myself, I'm like, I'm not ready to go home. And I went and I bar hopped alone in New York City, got shit-faced drunk, and missed the last train home at 4 a.m. and had to sit in Penn Station with all the other drunks and college kids and bums until 7 a.m. until the train started going again. And that night, while sitting at some random bar in New York City, I said to myself, you know, I'm tired of being uncomfortable in my own skin. And I had enough alcohol in my body, liquid courage, we'll call it, right, where I actually reached out to a dude I went to high school with who was a trainer at the gym around the corner from my house. I was like, I need help, man. And long story short, he connected me with somebody else who was working there. And that's what kickstarted my physical journey as a grown-ass man. And it was not easy coming out of the gate, but it was something that transformed into 75 hard multiple times and changing the entire perspective. You know, if you listen to Goggins, he talks about callousing the mind and going through this. And this is a very long change. It wasn't an overnight change. People look at me now and are like, oh, dude, you know, you went from 315 to 270. Wow, you did it really fast. Like, no, not at all. Like 2017, this started, right? So what are we in there? We're 7 years, realistically 7 years to get to where I am now. Like that's a long time, but it's a long time of being consistent. A small little bit each and every day over a long period of time has given me the results that I have now. And that lesson carries over, not just in a physical sense, it carries over in the spirituality, it carries over to the mindset, it carries over to the business building, carries over to whatever the fuck it is you want to. Like that's the biggest piece that I want to convey to people who listen is like, don't try to hit the grand slam every day when you get up to bat, because you're gonna fail and you're gonna basically turn against yourself. But if you show up every day and you count the little wins as wins, because they're going to stack up over time. And when they start to stack up, at some point in time, they're going to begin to compound, just like you in your real estate investments in Puerto Rico. Right? They're going to, you small win here today, keep doing it, keep stacking up, and all of a sudden, poof, we just paid this fucker off. Right? Because you showed up and you're consistent with it every day, but you're also doing that in other areas of life. So when you do that in one area of life, it's going to also show up in any other spots.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have conversations that are, with people that you don't really know that well, but you kind of interacted with, or you just get in front of them kind of for the first time, and they've been noticing you on social, and they're just like, you're the same person on camera that you are in person. Like, yeah, like I've developed the hell out of that, and I'm very proud of that. And like, that's not to say that I don't have like the day-to-day where I'm like recognizing if something's not good enough, or if I need to change something, and I recognize it and I make the change. So there's a lot of people out there that go like, oh, I'm going to be the same person to everybody that I meet and everybody that I am. And that's just who I am. And I know the framework that I want to work within, but I can be in that top right corner of that box and then cross over to the outside the box and then come right back in the box and be comfortable in all of those positions. And it's because I know what the core values are, like you said. Like I know what I pride myself on, and I know what matters, and I know what has to stand through in those regard. And it took a long time to build that. And 12 years of drinking from I graduated high school and I had been drunk maybe one time. I think I drank like once, maybe twice in high school. And then got drunk 3 times in the first weekend in college. And like, it just never stopped, right? It didn't stop until I decided finally at 31 to just go, yeah, I'm good. And just be done.
Yeah.
And actually it's 32, just be done. So 14 years of it, and just recognize that. But it was that mindset piece. It started with reading. It started with all of that. It started with working out and building up those strengths. And then you recognize like, you go, I actually did a video on this morning. You go from thinking you can do something to believing you can do something. And there's still that little bit of doubt, right? Like I have belief in myself, but there's that little bit of doubt of like, I don't know what the outside factors are. And then it goes up to, I know I can do whatever the hell I want. And that's not in a bad way, right? Like I know that I can, if you give me a task and I think it's valuable to my life, I know that I can accomplish that task. It might take me 6 days. It might take me 6 months. It might take me 6 years.
Yeah.
But like, I know the outcome of every situation I enter in. And it's always a win. And Goggins calls it the cookie jar, right? Like where you pull out those little cookies and, you look back and you go, I was able to do that. And, one of the hardest things I did was quit drinking.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I go, oh, that was easy. I just stopped. It was hard because it took me 12 years or 14 years to recognize it, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, it wasn't that big of a deal because I'm not tempted. I don't have cravings. Like I'm not that way. I just flipped the switch and went, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
And I just decided to be that person.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make there. Because similar to me, March 15th-ish or so was a year that I've been alcohol free. And I had been alcohol free for stints here and there, multiple 75 phases and journeys and whatnot, which proved to me that I could do it. Because that was the biggest, and I talked about this in your podcast, the biggest limiting belief I had was that I couldn't give up alcohol the first time that I did 75 hard. And it turned out to be the easiest part of the entire program. But it was, similar to you, I really didn't drink in high school. It was when I got out of high school and was around that 19 year of age mark. I went to trade school, which was different than college, but I hung around with a lot of friends who were going to college. So I had the college experience, trust me. And it continued, and then it continued, and it continued, and continued. And I closed my first business at 25, and it was a major hit to my ego. And believe it or not, I did more drinking at the age of 25 as a grown man than I did as 19, 20-year-old Tom in the college days. And that's how I coped at the time, looking back at it. go back into it, get married at 29. And now, like, I wasn't drinking daily at this point really either. But at the age of 29, I get married, move in with my then wife, and it became, come home from work and grab a beer. And that one beer every other day or so turned into 3 to 5 beers a day. And that lasted from the age of 29 over to the age of, we'll call it 42. Right. So, I mean, a long ass time of me putting alcohol into my body. And like people say, like, oh, one day you just quit cold turkey. No, like, I was doing work up here for years before I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And if I hadn't done that work for years consistently leading up to it, right? And I'm not talking about giving up alcohol. I'm talking about developing the mindset to allow me to give up alcohol. If I hadn't done that work consistently day after day, year after year, I wouldn't have been able to make that cold turkey choice that I did last year.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I recognize looking back at it and having that 360-foot view now, I was consistently searching for something else to give me an edge. I was consistently searching for, what can I add into this that's going to make my life better? What am I missing in life? What am I missing in my business? And it took me a long time to recognize that it wasn't what I was missing. It was what I needed to let go of. It was what I needed to release. And to come full circle on that point, we talked about it in the scheduling piece. It's not about scheduling every minute of every day to be productive. You're going to be more productive if you can control your schedule in a way that allows you to not have to be scheduled every minute of every day. Yeah. And that's where the win comes in for, I deal with it every day, talking with loan officers, talking with real estate agents. They're like, God, I don't know what I need to have. I'm missing this. I'm missing that. I'm like, let's figure out what you're not missing. Like, let's figure out what's blocking you from recognizing that you have everything you need. Mm-hmm. And I've said it I just went live yesterday. Was my birthday. So just went live on my birthday for One Man's Journey. It was the first solo episode I had done of that podcast. And I just set a date and I was like, okay, it's going to be my birthday. We'll call it good. And then cool thing, Bob Berg's episode launches on this Friday. He's a best-selling author of The Go-Giver. So I kind of had like a full circle view of that, of like, one of the biggest guests I've had on my podcast. I'm going to just I got to get in front of that one. So that's where I went. And, one of the things I was talking about on there is that, like, just being able to recognize that your struggles are not to be your fortress. Mm-hmm. They're your fuel. So everything you've gone through in life, don't look back and go, I'm the way I am because of that, and put yourself in a box you can't get out of. Look back and go, I have the ability to climb on top of this box because of everything I went through.
Yeah.
So it's that like in spite, despite thing, right? Like you can recognize that, like, everything that you went through over time that built up, that you're still fucking here, man.
Yeah.
Like all of those years that you drank, all of the years that I drank, all of the years that everybody went through struggles and the same struggle and the same shit over and over again, you're still fucking here. So Who says that today you can't look back and go, I'm here because of that? Mm-hmm. And utilize it as a strength to build into what you want.
Yeah, for sure. So two things come to mind listening to you talk about this. And one of them is a book. I don't know if you've read it or not. If you haven't, definitely add this to your list. It's called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. The entire theory of the book summed up into a sentence is less but better. And it's just a solid book. It's one that I go back to and typically reread at least once a year for myself. And it's one of those things where, and you get this as a reader, like, I'm a different person every time I read the book. So every time I read the book, I get something different out of it. Like, oh shit, I didn't realize they talked about this the last time I listened to it or read it, because now it's a situation or an issue that I'm facing in my current reality. Right. So definitely go ahead and check that book out. It's actually on the read list of all of the clients I onboard into Step It Up Academy. The next piece here is, I got a really good buddy of mine who's also a co-author. His name is Mike Hardenbrook. Mike and I worked as COOs at sister companies for a couple of years. And he's gone through his own journey of giving up alcohol as whatnot. And he wrote a damn book on it. And he's got a lot of research and data backing up some of the stuff that he discusses in there. And, just throwing it out there. I'm not pulling your arm here or twisting your arm to do it, but you would probably want to connect with Mike and get him on your podcast as a guest, because he's just an awesome dude. He's an entrepreneur. He's smart as shit. He's a tech genius, and he's also been through the backside of this, like you and I have, with, okay, this is what it required to give up alcohol, and talks about the differences in his family and how he shows up different as a dad because of the simple fact that him and his wife decided to get rid of something that was no longer serving them.
Yeah, it's I'm all for it. Definitely, we'll take the introduction on that one. It's that's kind of the premise of one man's journey is, and arguably, if I get a little bit of a soapbox here for myself on one man's journey, it's been a journey for myself of just doing the podcast. Like, you go back and look at my first couple episodes, I was a fucking struggle bus, dude. Like, it was like, like I didn't set an expectation of what it was about. And the guy that I had, the couple guys I had on there up front, we were just good buddies. And like, it's, it's me just like bringing on my friends and talking to my friends, and we didn't have any clue what it actually was. And, now it's kind of transformed into this thing for me that's like, one, I get to put myself in some rooms that I haven't ever been in or wouldn't have an opportunity to be in, right? Like, arguably, I'm not on your podcast without my own podcast. I'm not, we have a reason to interact of like, hey, I think you're pretty cool based on your content. And without a value add of a podcast, you probably look at it and go, okay, I don't really have time to take a conversation about it. And that's nothing against you. That's every response I would get from everybody, right? Like, we're just too busy to do that stuff. So it's putting me in rooms that way. And then the other piece of it is, some of the people that I bring on, I get to show them that, like, you get to be in rooms that you don't think you belong in, because you belong in whatever room you want to be in. And so you get to build with guys like that have gone through it and they come out, and guys like you that are kind of on that successful binge of like, I'm in a success situation and I know that I'm a successful person. And you get to bring on the people that are like, I don't really know if I'm what you're looking for to have on your podcast, because I haven't really gone through the success piece. And it's like, it's not about that. It's about like the fact that you're a man, you have a story, and you're still fucking here. And we've all been through this stuff and we can all relate. And so that's really like, that's a core passion of mine. I have goosebumps just talking about it, but that's a core passion of mine, of being able to be connected with people that have, maybe they're one step ahead of you and maybe they're two steps behind you, but in either way, you can help each other in different directions.
Yeah, 1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah, for me, it's never like, hey, is this guest that's coming on, or are they more successful? They make more money? Like, who gives a shit? If they've, and I think this is also an important lesson here. Let's just dive into it from a coaching perspective, right? Like, I've worked with clients who make fucking mountains more money than I ever have or probably ever will. Okay. And, I've asked a couple of them over the years, like, hey, how come me, that you chose me? Right. And this is me doing research so I can better sell. Okay. Let's just call it what it is. And the response is, you have accomplished something in your life, whether it's business or personal, that I have not been able to do. And I'm willing to pay you, exchange my money for your time and the information that's in your head, and learn how you overcame this, or how you dealt with this situation, or how you built a process to fix this in your company. Right. And to them, it's irrelevant if you make more money than them or not. It's, can I get that information out of your head so I can then take it, reuse it, repurpose it, and get an ROI on it? Cool. Sure. Let's go.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I have to remind myself of a lot as well. Right. Like, especially when loan officers are coming to me and look like wanting to ask about, like, how do I get to 4 loans a month? Well, I've been doing 3 to 5 loans a month for the last 6 years. So I can tell you a pretty good range of that. I spiked at, 4.5 loans a month during the crazy times with the great rates. So I can tell you how to get there, or I can probably find a situation where you can improve and find 1 loan a month. So if I can do 1 loan a month, I can show you probably in a different direction how to find another loan a month. So whether you're at 7 or 10, there's something that I can offer, and sometimes the best part about it for me, and really, like, I'm recognizing this from I ran my first sales meeting as a sales manager yesterday for the company I work for. And we had just like put this position into place, and, growing forward, we're going to start recruiting and bringing other people in. And I was able to recognize like halfway through the meeting, like I'm approaching this differently than the owner has. Cause he's like, it's your baby, do your thing. And I'm just like recognizing like that man offers a ton of value. Like there's a reason I'm at the company I'm at, because that guy knows what the hell he's talking about. You know, like he's been at like as high as 25, 30, 50 loans a month. And I'm at, 3 to 5. Like I know he knows what he's doing. There's a way that he wins, but I do it just a little bit differently. And like, that's the value. And so that was what I was pushing to the loan officers in our company, was just like, you're all different. Stop trying to do it the same way as everybody else does.
Yeah.
And so developing, one of the things I'm focusing on now is developing a story and developing your story, because it's yours.
Yeah.
And I was coaching with a loan officer this morning, and he's like, I got a lunch today with 2 realtors. I'm like, awesome. That's the best scenario. You get two realtors in one place. You get kind of like killing 2 birds, 1 stone, right? Like you get to work with both of them. And if you impress one of them, you impress both of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you planning on talking about that nobody else talks about? He responded with no fees, fast. I'm like, I just like sent a GIF of somebody yawning. I'm like, I don't give a shit about that. I'm like, so what are your core values? And like we said, we start with core values. And he spits out a couple of things of like dedication and honesty, or he spits out family. And I said, well, family's not really a core value. It can be like the premise of the core value, but there's a value system that's underneath that. So like, is it honesty? Is it dedication? Is it loyalty? What is it? And he said, dedication and honesty. And I said, okay. So when you were growing up from the ages, like, let's call it 9 to 13, do you have some kind of a situation that helped you build that value system? Like, is there a story that you can think of specifically based around dedication and loyalty? And he goes, well, my childhood was pretty rough. Like my parents were abusive. I don't really have any of those stories. And I'm like, okay, hang with me here. I'm not going to dive in. I'm not going to dig into this. And you don't need to either in your scenario. I was like, how about this? When I was growing up, my parents didn't really value or give me space to, present myself and really like be honest with them, because, sometimes when I was honest, I got the belt on the other side, right? Or something like that. Like you got, you didn't get the response you should have gotten as a kid being honest. So
yeah,
I, over time, learned the exact opposite of what honesty and dedication look like. And so I bring every day to my business, and I only associate with myself, or only associate with people that have the same values and dedication and honesty. Do you think that would have value to your real estate buyers? So now which one provides more impact? That story that you create, or I got great rates and I close fast and I don't have to charge any fees. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, who gives a shit? If you put the story behind it, and this is a sales lesson here for anyone who's listening, right? I don't care what the fuck industry it is, what you do, it doesn't make a difference. If you sell the story of you, who you are, what you believe in, why you do it kind of deal, it doesn't matter the bells and the whistles, the features, the rate, the amount of money you're charging per service call. It's irrelevant. If you connect with and sell that person as a person on the simple fact that you're the one that they should be dealing with, the rest of that shit is just, it's noise. And I've said this countless times here on the podcast, speaking engagements, and you've probably heard this too, because it's an equation that goes around the sales community. And again, it's agnostic to what you're selling. And it's know, like, and trust. Like that's the formula that equals a sale, right? The person has to know you and once they know you, they can determine if they like you. If they determine that they like you, they can determine if they're going to trust you as well. You add the 3 of those together, and now you can go and close the deal. If you're missing one of those pieces, you've got work to do. And it doesn't have to do with what's my rate, this is what I'm charging, this is how many points I'm getting, all that crap. It's going and selling them on you, the human being, and why they should do business with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the salespeople try to find a way to navigate through all 3 of those, and it can be super difficult. And Rene Rodriguez is a best-selling author, and I had the opportunity to connect with him. He's very closely connected with the Loan Officer Network, and he presented at an AIM conference I went at, and one of the things that he talks about, and he calls it adding pathos to your story. And so you can kind of circumvent all of like the traditional, like, creating yeses and like all of the traditional sales speak methods. You can circumvent a lot of that by creating the pathos, which means emotion, right? Creating emotion and connecting on an emotional level with your client before anybody else would. And so the most difficult part about that is stop answering the questions that you're asked. like when someone comes up to you and you're like, hey, you know, I'm Ken, I'm a real estate agent, and you're like, they're asking you to introduce yourself. Does I'm Ryan Speltz, I'm a mortgage broker sound better? Or does the story that we just created around that guy's lifestyle sound better? You're able to just like flip it, like, and you have to be uncomfortable as hell, because like they're gonna look at you like, where the fuck is this guy going? And then you bring it full circle, and you know, it makes a whole lot of sense at the end. And then they go, man, I like that. There's something about him. He's different. And that's all it is, creating that emotional connection, you know, because you can walk somebody down. Like when I was telling that story, I guarantee your face was, or your brain was taking you to a place of being a 9-year-old kid in a house trying to tell the truth. Like you were there with me, and taking somebody on that path with you is so valuable. And you can get that to that trust level considerably faster, instead of just spitting facts about things.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Dude, this has been awesome. We've touched on a bunch of different things here, which I think is cool too. So like at the end of the day, you work with people. You obviously you're part of a brokerage team as well. You're coaching your team members there, which I think is awesome, and you're doing some coaching on the outside of that. So like if people are interested, want to learn more about you, want to learn how to connect with you, some of the stuff that you offer, where's the best place they can go to find that?
Pretty much all the platforms. Kick Butt Mortgage Guy, all one word, is the best way to do it. Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I mean, I'm kind of everywhere without being everywhere. To utilize a lot of tools to be everywhere, because obviously that takes a lot of time. But yeah, Kick Butt Mortgage Guy is the best way to kind of just start at a certain place, and then One Man's Journey 22 on YouTube and on TikTok as well. That's kind of the two places there, and then, you know, the Reconnect has its own value off to the side. But yeah, the One Man's Journey 22, YouTube and TikTok are kind of those are like my little pride and joy, my side stuff that brings me a little bit of therapy outside of the mortgage stuff. So
yeah, man, love it, dude. It's been great to connect with you here again, and I really appreciate you coming in, just, you know, telling it how it is and sharing some of your story. And just awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. Happy birthday.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Yeah, it was enjoy the conversation with you at all times, and looking forward to collaborating in the future as well.
Yep. Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.